KeyBank in Northeast Ohio. And on behalf of my peers and everyone here today, I'm very pleased to welcome you to the first ever City Club in the City forum presentation. This program was developed with many minds working and thinking together, and it was developed with you in mind. The City Club's mission is to inform, educate, and inspire its citizens by presenting significant ideas and providing opportunities for dialogue. The City Club has been fulfilling on this mission for close to 100 years. And as you know, traditionally, the City Club's public forums have been held in downtown Cleveland. The City Club in the City is a program designed to bring these traditional forums to new communities and neighborhoods around Cleveland with speakers who will focus on topics related to diversity, racial, cultural, and ethnic differences. Today's speaker, Geoffrey Canada, who I had the wonderful pleasure of meeting a little earlier today, is a national advocate for and expert on issues concerning violence, children, and community redevelopment, all things that are very, very important to us here in Cleveland. And we're thrilled with this first ever event that we have such a large audience. I think we had close to 400 people registered for the event today. So you all know this all means something to all of us to be here. We are honored, again, to bring this program to you, and it is my honor to introduce a partner in this, Deborah Plummer, the Executive Director, Office of Diversity of the Cleveland Clinic, who are the sponsor of today's speaker.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure, on behalf of Cleveland Clinic, to welcome you to the inaugural City Club in the City event and to present to you Geoffrey Canada. You know, since 1921, Cleveland Clinic has grown from a small group of practicing doctors to a world leader in healthcare. But one thing about that has not changed: our name. We are the Cleveland Clinic, and we wear that with a badge of honor and pride. One of our core values at Cleveland Clinic is that of innovation, and our physicians, our nurses, our business staff, our allied health professions, we are all encouraged to take what we call innovation trips and to bring back and to learn about best practices. So it is in that spirit and with great excitement that we present to you Geoffrey Canada. As part of Dr. Eugene Sanders' Army of Believers, we wanted to bring Mr. Canada to Cleveland to be a part of that energy. We know that you will be inspired and motivated by him, and you will be able to incorporate some of these best practices from Mr. Canada. So it is my honor, on behalf of Cleveland Clinic, as co-chair of the City Club Diversity Committee, to present to you Geoffrey Canada. We really want to thank you for the opportunity to join you in strengthening our community. And so now I'd like to introduce to you Courtney DiOrio, who is also the co-chair of our Diversity Committee at the City Club and the past president of the City Club of Cleveland.
Good afternoon. I get to ring the gong. Thank you, Deborah, and thank you, Lisa. I join with you in your enthusiasm for our speaker and our program today. I am particularly thrilled that we bring you this inaugural City Club in the City program in partnership with two of the pioneers in diversity and inclusion, KeyBank and Cleveland Clinic. This initiative is just one expression of the City Club's commitment to providing quality programs through a focused eye on enriching the makeup of those who participate. Before I begin, I would like to thank Catholic Charities and LaJean Ray McNair and her staff here at the award-winning Fatima Family Center for opening their arms to the City Club, our esteemed speaker, and the broader community. It is very rewarding to look into the audience and see many of you whom I know to be actively involved with our youth in our businesses, schools, churches, government programs, and nonprofit agencies. We would like to personally acknowledge and welcome Councilwoman Fannie Lewis, who made a special effort to be with us today. Like Lisa and Deborah, I expect this forum to inform, educate, and inspire. I also hope that Mr. Canada will call us to action, individually and collectively. For some of us, the ideas Mr. Canada will address will be eye-opening. For others, like the staff here and many of you, his remarks will be familiar, but will nonetheless provide a much-needed booster shot, as Legine told me on Friday. I believe that through dialogue, debate, and discussion, that we can create and deepen our shared understanding of what we need to do to make this a place where our children will have a future. It is up to us to determine how we will sustain his energy, his ideas, and lessons learned through deeds and action once he returns to his remarkable work in Harlem. Since 1990, Geoffrey Canada has been the president and CEO for the Harlem Children's Zone. Harlem Children's Zone offers an interlocking network of social service, education, and community building programs to thousands of children and families in a 60-block area of central Harlem. Before joining this initiative, he led the Robert White School and the Reedland Centers for Children and Families. At Reedland, he developed the Beacon School program, which uses public school buildings to provide inner-city families with safe shelters and constructive activities 17 hours a day, 365 days a year. The program has been replicated throughout New York and in Connecticut, Chicago, and California. Appointed by New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, he is currently serving as co-chair of a task force assigned to significantly reduce poverty in New York City. Mr. Canada, as I found particularly interesting, is also a third-degree black belt who teaches the principles of Taekwondo to community youth, along with anti-violence and conflict resolution techniques. Mr. Geoffrey Canada is best known for his passionate concern for children and their families and his selfless determination to make their lives safer and more successful. An acclaimed author and winner of numerous awards, he was the first ever recipient of the Heinz Award in the Human Condition. Perhaps most importantly, he sets a personal example for others. I excerpt the following from the Heinz Award presentation, which I quote. Geoffrey Canada believes that if today's urban youth are to be convinced that a disadvantaged background does not demand despair or dictate defeat, they must have real role models and real heroes. And they need them on the spot, successful, educated men and women who continue to live alongside them in their communities, shop at their stores, play in their parks, and ride the buses and subways just as they do. Geoffrey Canada's life teaches by example. We are honored to have this exemplary leader with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Geoffrey Canada.
Thank you, Courtney, for that wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited to be here, and I really want to spend some time talking to you about what I consider to be an American crisis, not a Cleveland crisis, but an American crisis. But can I start off with a little gossip? It's a little gossip, right? Because I've had a pretty remarkable year. I've been on 60 Minutes twice, and so you know what? To me, 60 Minutes. I grew up in the 50s and the 60s, and if you have a message that I believe I have around urban education and violence, the place to be, the thing to get on is 60 Minutes. 25 million viewers, time, they give you enough time to tell your story. And so 60 Minutes called, and before I said yes, you know, when I grew up watching 60 Minutes, I wondered, why did people go on 60 Minutes? They knew they stole the money. Why did they go on? Because, you know, you'd be on 60 Minutes, they'd be going along, they'd have the interview, and pretty soon, you know, they would bring out the document. Is that your signature there, right? And they played that gotcha TV, right? So the first piece I did on 60 Minutes was with Ed Bradley, one of the last things that Ed did before he passed away. And I was sitting there, and I had one eye on Ed all the time saying, boy, if he comes out with this document, right, I'm going to say, Ed, I don't know what you're talking about, right? That's what they all said. But you know what? I was wrong. I thought 60 Minutes was the epitome. 60 Minutes is not the epitome of getting your message out to America. You know what it is? So Oprah is it. So Oprah calls, right? So Oprah calls and they say, Jeff, you know, you want to do the Oprah show? And I'm like, I know who Oprah is. I'm like, Oprah? Yeah, I'm going to do the Oprah show. but I wasn't playing Oprah like right? I wasn't giving Oprah enough credit because now, you know, I'm doing 60 Minutes, I'm coming to Cleveland, my family, they could care less, right? It's like, oh yeah, he's off doing whatever. So I'm doing Oprah. So I'm sitting at it, we had a little family reunion, I just mentioned, oh yeah, I'm doing Oprah next week. And so my mother says, and so do you have tickets? And I'm like, tickets? Tickets? You get tickets though? So then they were like, you don't have any tickets? I hear, okay, calm down. So I called my communication guy. I said, look, call Oprah, can we get tickets? And Oprah does the worst thing possible. She gives me 7 tickets. See, now Oprah had given me 2 tickets, right? Like that's mom, right? And my wife. 7 tickets, everybody in the family thinks they're in the top 7, right? They're like, so now I'm trying to figure out how to not get people to go, right? So I look at my oldest son. He's a partner in a law firm. So I say, Jerry, look, this is on a Tuesday. I know you. He said, I'm going to Oprah, Dad. I can't believe you're going to Oprah? Said, no, I'm going to Chicago. So then I've got like my hip hop son. Any of you have one of those, right? This is the son that when he was a teenager, when I was getting dressed, pulling up my pants in the mirror, he was pulling his down, right? So I looked at Bruce, I was like, well, I know Oprah. He's like, you kidding? I'm going to Oprah. So like everybody goes, so it's all 7, we're going to Oprah. And Oprah sends a limo, right? So you have that whole experience. And then on my way there, my daughter and my mother they watch Oprah every day. They start telling me all the stuff about Oprah I don't know. They're like, Dad, do you know Oprah has a germ thing? I said, Oprah has a germ thing? They said, yeah, don't go grabbing Oprah's hands. Oprah don't. I said, really? You can't shake? She said, no, don't go grabbing Oprah's hands. And then my wife said, don't kiss. You like to kiss. Don't go hugging and kiss. Oprah don't like that stuff. I said, you can't hug and kiss her. No, don't do that. You're going to embarrass the whole family. So that's fine. So I'm in the green room, right? They're about to bring me out. And, you know, they say, hey, Geoffrey Canada. And I'm back there practicing, right, my interest for Oprah, right? Because I can't shake her hand. I'm like, Oprah, hey, Oprah, right? I'm working, you know, how do you do that whole? So I go out and you walk across this thing and the audience is out there, right? And I'm in my mind, I'm saying, the Oprah thing. And Oprah sees me, she says, Geoff Canada. And she grabs both of my hands and I'm thinking, Oprah the germs, right? And then I swear, this is on YouTube. You don't have to believe me. You think I'm lying, you can see it on YouTube. She grabs my face, I want to kiss you, and she kisses me, and I'm pulling back thinking, oh no, Oprah, don't do it, don't. You know what I learned from that experience? Don't listen to your family, right? Don't pay them any attention. So that was interesting. Let me tell you what I have been trying to say to America, which I'm going to say to you all today. We have a crisis in our communities regarding our young people. And it is something that this country has never faced before. And I am telling you, unless you in this audience do something about it, we are not only going to lose this next generation, we are no longer going to remain the only superpower in this country. People don't understand what's going on out here for real, you know, unless you travel internationally or you know people who run multinational businesses. You don't understand that the kids I'm worried about, they're in trouble, but the middle class American kids are in trouble. They cannot compete with the children from India and China. We are getting our clot cleaned educationally all across the world. I mean, we're not number 2, we're not number 8, we're not number 15 anymore, and we are not going to be able to compete. So if I'm looking and saying middle class children and upper middle class children can't compete, what's going to happen to our poor children of color? I'm telling you, this thing is serious. It is a crisis, and we've got to do something about it. Now, don't get fooled like I was. See, I was looking at the data, right? And this thing is bad. Now, I'm on the board of the Children's Defense Fund, and we just published a piece that we called the Cradle to Prison Pipeline, right? Now, if you have not seen that report, go get it. because what Marion Wright Edelman and I and a bunch of us have been looking around this country, and we said, look, there is one thing that we seem to be really good at America, which is getting certain of our kids directly into jails and prisons, and the numbers are startling. The numbers are startling. I'm going to read you, this is a direct quote. Today, 580,000 black males are serving sentences in state and federal prisons, while fewer than 40,000 black males earn a bachelor's degree each year. Now, just 480,000, that's not the local city jails, this is just state and federal, while fewer than 40,000 are earning a degree. Now, you know what we pay to lock up somebody? If you understand why this country is in a crisis, you want to understand why, if you all in Cleveland don't decide to see, I decided I was going to try and save my kids in Harlem. That was a personal thing. I just decided one day, I got it, because no one else is going to save these kids, so I got to save them, and I got my 10,000. Those are mine. The other kids need to be saved. I can only do 10,000. I'm going to do my piece. But I'm going to tell you something. If you want to understand why this country's kids are in trouble, you merely have to read something like this. Now, this is from the New York Times. It's October 30th. This is on the front page of the national section of the Times. It says, "Law on young offenders causes Rhode Island furor." Now, here's the deal. Rhode Island, nice little state, has a huge budget deficit, right? So now they need to fix their budget. And so this is what the policymakers figured out, right here. It costs $39,000 a year to lock up an adult in Rhode Island. It costs $98,000 a year to lock up a teenager in Rhode Island. Right, now let's just, y'all staying with me on this, right? $39,000 for an adult, $98,000 for a teenager. So what do these geniuses do? They change the age when you can be convicted as an adult. They said, well, what if we lock up the 17-year-olds and put them in adult jail? That way we don't have to spend the $98,000 on them. We can only spend $39,000 on them. There's a solution. We'll save our budget. We'll close the hole by doing that. Now, what kind of country comes up with a policy like that? What kind of country? Look, and you know what happened? Did they save the money? No. Because they put these 17-year-olds in adult jail. They had to put them in protective custody, which costs $110,000 a year to keep the kids in protective custody. So then they said, oh, that was a bad idea. Not because we've destroyed the lives of these children, not because we've done something in the sake of money, which is almost criminal, but because we didn't save any money. So now they went back to the old system. Now, why didn't anybody in Rhode Island say, if we're spending $98,000 a year to lock up these teenagers, maybe we could spend $50,000 a year to keep the kids from ever going in jail? I mean, any of you run programs for $50,000? Look, for $50, I'll take 2 of them, right? Well, I mean, come on, let's get real. Come on, what kind of craziness is this? You mean to tell me we couldn't figure out a way to intervene in a system like that when the dollars we're spending are that high? Doesn't make any sense. Why not divert those kids from going into the system? So now, let me just ask that question again. Why not divert those kids from going into that system? There's a challenge. If you want to see some of the worst policy that we as a nation have ever created, you look at what's happening with these kids that don't get an education, that we know they didn't get an education when they were in the 2nd grade, and we knew they didn't get an education when they were in the 4th grade, and we knew in the 8th grade they didn't get an education, and then when they're killing us when they're 17 and 18, we say, what's wrong with those kids? We knew those kids were on their way for 15 years, and no one did anything. See, now everybody wants to save the kids when they're 17, they got bandanas tied around, they got a 45 or Uzi in their waist. People want to scramble around and say, hey, we got to save that kid. We knew that kid was in trouble in the 2nd grade. You know what schools they were in? You know what communities they came from? So here I go, I'm trying to save my kids. $3,500 a year to save one. That's what I'm spending per year. Now I told you, I have 10,000 kids. The math is expensive. I'm spending a lot of money to save these kids. So I'm spending $3,500 a year to save the kids. I'm begging for that money. So I'm going out and talking to people, I need $3,500. I said, how many kids is that, Jeff? I said, 10,000. They said, 10,000? They said, you got to reduce that number. You can't spend $3,500 a year on the kids. They said, that's not scalable. I said, what do you mean? He said, you know how many kids are in trouble? You know how much money that'll cost? I said, well, that's not scalable? He said, no, that's not scalable. I said, well, wait a second, let me get this. So I got Raheem, he's 8. You don't want to spend $3,500 a year. But when Raheem turns 18, you are totally prepared to spend $35,000 a year. And by the way, I've been in a lot of criminal parts of the court system. And I have yet to see a judge say, oh, Raheem, this is your 2nd armed robbery, and you hurt somebody. So I was going to give you 10 years, but let's see, at $35,000 a year, that's $350,000. That's not scalable, Raheem. I'm going to have to let you go. I've yet to hear that, all right? So how come one part of our system is totally scalable? We don't care how many kids have to go into that system, and what do we get as an outcome? Do you know the kind of data I have to produce for my $3,500 to prove that these kids are better off? I got to show reading scores, math scores. I got to show drinking. I got to show the reduction in pregnancy. I got to show all of that for $3,500. What do you have to show for $35,000? Do you have to show one positive thing? Nothing. Nothing at all. Now there's a system that is broken. And that is not happening in Cleveland. It's happening in Detroit, it's happening in Milwaukee, it's happening in LA, it's happening in Oakland, it's happening in Harlem, it's happening from one end of America to the other. Now, you might have been like I was. I looked at these numbers. I said, I don't get this. I don't get this. We lock up more people per capita than any place else on the face of the earth. You can mention the worst place, and when the Soviet Union was at its worst, it didn't come close to locking up the people we lock up in America today. Now let's see, we're spending all that money on jails. We don't have money for health care, the schools, the people can't get a decent salary. How does that work that we still stay a superpower? So you know what I said? Someone knows the answer to that, but it's above my pay grade, right? You know, I used to sit there and say, well, I mean, look, people love this country. Someone's figured this thing out. They see the country is going in the wrong direction. So over the last 5 or 6 years, I met those higher ups, right? As high as you could go. Secretaries, education, secretaries of labor, a couple of presidents. They don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. When I meet them, they're asking me, what do you think we ought to do, Jeff? I said, why are you asking me? You're running the country. You don't know? They don't know. So if you don't save your children, guess what? Ain't nobody gonna do it. There ain't no plan out there. There's nobody coming in. Look, there are no superheroes out there coming in to do this thing. It's sad. We should live in a nation where the country has this as its first priority. We should. This should be the first priority of any American president. It should be the first thing on their agenda. How I'm going to save the children of America to guarantee that we remain a superpower. It's not on anyone's agenda. So this falls to local communities to figure out what to do. Now, I'm going to tell you the biggest obstacle with coming up with a plan to save your children. Money. Right? And because it's money, it impacts the vision. Meaning people are afraid to even come up with a vision because they don't know where they're going to get the money. So they don't even come up with a vision. They don't even try to solve the situation. They're happy to take care of 100 kids when 1,000 kids need to be taken care of. They're so proud to see 50 kids doing something when you should have 500 kids doing it. And why? Because they say, well, I didn't never get the money to do that. So So we have been playing not to win. We just been playing to hang on. And I think we got to change that equation. We've got to play to win. See, here's the problem with the resource issue. Right? You say, so Jeff, where are you getting all this money from? Well, this is what I learned about money. It never was the money, right? When the Clintons were in the White House, you remember those days? You know what we had? We had $1 trillion surplus. Trillion. Now look, I don't know how much $1 trillion is. I'm going to just admit it. It's not relevant to my daily life, right? I mean, look, I kind of know we're $1 billion because I kind of know the zero, but $1 trillion, I don't need to know. It was a lot of money. So I went to them. I said, wait. Bob Reich, all of them. I said, look, we got $1 trillion. We could redo every school in America. We could increase the team. We could double the teaching salaries. We could bring talent. We could do. They said, Jeff, you don't understand economics. I said, it's true. I'm a psych major. They said, no. We got to save this money for a rainy day. I said, we do? They said, yeah, see, we're flush with money, but it won't always last, and we got to make sure there's money there for the country to continue, and we're going to put this money aside, and we're not going to spend it. I said, but it's like $1 trillion. They said, yes. They didn't spend the money. So then Bush got in. In 1 year, we went from $1 trillion surplus to $1 trillion deficit. I said, wait a second. So you go to Bush, they said, we don't have any money. I said, well, what happened to the money? There was $1 trillion, it's all gone. So look, when they had the money, they wouldn't give it to us. And then when they don't have the money, they won't give it to you. What's the difference between those two things? Nothing. They have no intention of spending that money on our children. None. And if we don't demand, and you know what? Let me tell you the poor suckers we are. We won't even ask for the money. We're so worried about the dollar amounts, we won't even say it. So no one's asking for the real money. People not saying, oh, we need $50 billion to save America's children. People can't even get that number out their mouth. People are so intimidated about the resource issue that we have failed to come up with powerful enough plans to help our children when they are in crisis. And this is something we're going to have to fight to do. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to tell you, we work in 100 blocks in Harlem. And in my 100 blocks, over the next 2 years, I'm going to spend about $120 million that I raise myself, that I spend of myself to save my kids. That's for my 10,000 kids. That's what I'm doing. Now, 10 years ago, before we started this project, if you had asked me, Jeff, do you think over 2 years you could spend $100 million? I'd have told you, nah, that's crazy. See, I was like, ain't nobody gonna give nobody like me no $100 million. You kidding me? Don't they know where I'm from? I'm from the hood. I grew up in this. I ain't give nobody no money. I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think it was possible. But you know what we did? We started with a plan to win. So once we started putting the pieces together, guess what happened? The budget began to grow. I said, so where are we gonna start? They said, well, we think you have to start at birth. I said, okay, that makes sense to me. We don't have any programs for children at birth. I said, what happens? Well, they say, then you better get them at 4, got to get pre-K. I said, well, what's the best pre-K program? They said, all day. I said, all day? They don't pay for all day. They pay for 2.5 hours. Don't nobody want 2.5 hours of pre-K. Parents are working. They need all day. I said, ooh. So what's the best staffing ratio? They said about maybe 5 to 1. So, ooh, that'll be expensive. And what should a pre-K teacher think? You better get someone with a master's degree. They need to know what they're doing. You know, these kids they don't have the background. We need some, oh yeah, that's expensive. That's pricey. Let me tell you, look, we drew it up. I went to my board, I said, these aren't my numbers. This is just what it's going to cost to do the job. Now, either we're going to do it or we're not. But if we're not going to do it, let's just say we're not going to do it. Let's not pretend that we really have a plan to save these kids if we don't. See, my theory is, if you're going to save the kids I'm talking about, the kids that are heading directly into jails and on welfare and teen pregnancy, and if you're going to save those kids, you've got to do everything. You can't do one thing. You can't do teenage pregnancy prevention. You can't do gang intervention. You can't do pre-K. You got to do everything. And people say, well, you can't do everything, Jeff. That's so liberal of you. That's so you got to target. I said, yeah. So when it comes to poor kids, you don't think we can do everything. But what about your child? What could we take out for your child? When could we say, oh, this could be mediocre? How about 4? No. 8? No, that's elementary school. 11? No, middle school. No. How about 17? Oh my God, no. So for your kid, we've got to have a great environment for their whole life. But for my kids, you want me to make a decision of when I can invest and when I should pull away that investment. That didn't work for poor children. Never did. It never will. So the question is not whether or not you can do everything. The question is for how many children can you do everything? And we started out with 3,000. Then we got to 6,000. And then we got to 9,000. And currently we're at 10 and we're going to go to 14. And then that's going to be enough for us. That's going to be our part of this. So I think there are 6 things you have to do. The first is you have to begin early. We start with baby college. We start teaching our parents from birth all that we know about brain development because our children start off from birth. This is from, look, my wife and I have a 9-year-old, so I started this program right when my wife was pregnant. Now, first of all, my wife and I also have, our oldest daughter is 36, and then I have a son 35, and I have a son 31, and then the 9-year-old. I know, some of you are thinking, boy, that guy sounded intelligent until he said that, right? I know. But you know, one of the things that happened with having this kid, it seemed when I had my first kids, I was so young, right? And I was so involved in work and career, I didn't really think about what I was doing. It's like a miracle these kids turned out all right? Because I wasn't really focused. But this kid, I started thinking about it right from the moment of conception. My wife and I began to change our life. What you eat, what you drink, the amount of exercise, the number of times go to the doctors, the kind of stress you're under. Why? None of that. See, for people who grow up, none of that sounds unusual, that you shouldn't have a pregnant woman under stress with arguing and fighting. None of us would think that was unusual. Oh, who's told our people that? Right? Not good for the fetus. In the womb, before the baby's even here, we know that kind of stress is no good for that fetus. No one's saying that to our parents. So we start at birth saying to parents, look, this baby's home for the next 9 months. It actually is learning in there. You're actually influencing that baby. That baby comes out. From the moment that baby is out, a number of us started trying to educate that child. We talk to the child. The child don't understand you. You're sitting there talking to that baby. Hey, baby, oh, yeah, you look so cute. Oh, yes, you have to talk to that child. Absolutely, that brain is starting the process. We learn the stages of development. We know the difference between what you do with a 12-month-old versus what you do with a 24-month-old. It's a big difference. That child should have learned lots of stuff. The fact that you have to read to that child, you have to sing that. No one told our parents that. No one helped them understand the vast literature in a real, regular, down-home way where they get it. They say, oh, I understand that. That's what you're talking about? That's baby college. We start with baby college for our babies. We try and get all the parents focused right now that education begins in the womb and continues for that child's entire life. But I mean real education. I mean, what do you do with a 2-year-old child? Oh yeah, we've got a plan. We tell them, oh, you read to that child every day. And this is how you talk to that child. You make sure, you don't use those, see, in my culture, people use very directive sentences. Pick that up over there. Wrong. And you see that red block? The one that's square? Pick that red block and bring it over to mommy and put it in mommy's hand. Now see, that's language. That child's brain is processing those two things very differently. In one, you are expanding the vocabulary, enriching the child. Oh, so that's a red block. Oh, and the block is square. And yes. There's a different way of developing a brain, and you know what? A lot of us know it, but maybe we don't know the principles underlying it. And how do you get our parents to understand those principles so they start using that also? We get the kids at 4, stay with them straight through. You heard about that intense program? And I'm telling you, for our 4-year-olds, 100% of our 4-year-olds for 6 years in a row have tested at or above grade level when we send them into kindergarten. Not 80, not 90, every single child. And you know why? Let me tell you why. If a kid is 13 and they're 3 years behind, how long does it take to catch that child up? Who knows? Years, we know that. But at 4, I got that kid from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5:45 in the evening. I got the kid for 11 months. I can catch any 4-year-old up in that period of time. I can get you, I don't care where you came in at. In a year, I can get you on grade level because it's young enough to intervene, because the difference between what a 4-year-old comes in who's from middle class America and what a poor 4, there's a difference. But it's not a difference that an intense program can't make up. So that's the first thing, we begin early. The second thing is you have to create a continuum of programs that go straight through until those kids go to college. So those same kids we got at baby college, we put in our 4-year-old program. Then those kids, we follow those kids in school, we work with those kids after school, we have middle school programs, we have high school programs, and we get that same group, we make sure those kids go to college, and we follow the kids in college to make sure they get through with college and they come out of college. Right now we've got 280 of our kids in college, but if you look, this year we sent 145 ninth graders into college, and we'll send somewhere between 140 to 150 kids in college every year from this point on. Now, so that means about 3 years from now, I'm gonna have about 500 kids in college. You know what that means 3 years from now? I'll be bringing home about 100 plus kids with college degrees every year from that point on. Now you know what that's going to do for a community like Harlem, to have 100 kids coming home with college degree year after year after year after year. After a while, guess what? You turn around, you're going to bump into a kid with a college degree. You say, oh, you got a degree? Everybody in Harlem got a degree. That's what it's going to feel like when you get them in there by the hundreds. By the hundreds. That's the point of this thing, not by 20, not by 50. When you bring so many kids in, and these kids have come up through the community, they're part of the community, and they've been part of changing and building their community. You get those kids with college degree, they become your parents, they become the next ones who run your little leagues and do all of the kind of positive stuff you need. That's how you rebuild a community, and we think that's part of what you have to do. So you have to create this, what we call a conveyor belt, starting at birth, and by the way, this doesn't exist in any poor community in America, except ours, not that I've seen. Somebody told me, oh, so-and-so is doing it, but I haven't seen it yet. We're the same kids that you picked up as infants, you stay with. You do not let those kids go. You do not let them fall off the track. You provide all the services, health, mental health, housing, food, nutrition, whatever these kids need, you make sure they get it throughout their entire time of childhood with you. That's what it takes to turn around a community. And the third thing is we have parents as partners. We've got to engage our parents, and we're not very good at it. We have to come up with more powerful ways of engaging our parents. One of the things that we found out, so I was talking to a group of parents, because we have kids coming into our schools and the kids are sleeping. Like they're sleeping, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, kid is asleep. So I was like, find out what's going on. So they went and found out, you go talk to the parent, a reasonable parent. They said, look, I work till 8. Time I get home, you know, I haven't seen my kid all day. So the kid's up with me, I want to talk, the kid's going to bed at 9:30. I said, kid's in the 3rd grade. Kid can't go to sleep at 9:30 and go to school all day. Parents said, no, but I haven't seen the child. Now, you know what? There's a problem. Right? It's logical. It's logical. I haven't seen my kid all day. I want to spend some time with my kid. But who's saying to the parent, wrong. It's a sacrifice, because that kid must have their rest or they will never amount to anything. And you cannot make a decision as a parent that I'm going to keep this kid up knowing this kid is going to sleep through school and elementary. Not that, but no one's talking to parents. No one's giving them solid advice about them. So now this is what you need to do. So here's the way we're going to deal with this. Right? I'm going to help you figure out a way that you can communicate with your child so you don't feel like you missed them. So when you come home, that last half an hour, you get that kid so that kid can get to bed on time. We're not helping our parents do this, and without that kind of help, Parents are struggling to do the best they can do. Look, a lot of these parents, you know, we have welfare reform. These parents are working. No one helped them figure out they weren't making it when they weren't working. Now you got them working. No one's helping them figure out, well, how do you organize your life so these children will do well? We've got to get involved in that. The fourth thing is that we have to have our schools redesigned for success. Here we have a problem. Schools, most of our schools that are failing, they're designed to fail. They're designed to fail. And that's because there's a certain physics to education. Most of our school year, it doesn't make any sense, right? The school year doesn't make any sense. The school year is designed so kids who are middle-class kids, who come from homes where there's lots of structure and books and learning, and there's money and good facilities and good teachers and good leaders at the schools, will make 1 year's progress in 1 year's time. So if you have a school that you've got 70% of your kids behind grade level, we're not designed to ever let those kids catch up. Those kids are not going to catch up. See, and let me tell you, they're not going to catch up in Cleveland, and they're not going to catch up in Detroit, and they're going to catch up in Harlem. Because the schools are designed that in that 180 days, guess what's happening in middle class and upper middle class communities? You think they're waiting for your poor kids to catch up? We got to take the next 3 days off because those poor kids got to catch up with where. Oh no! They are plowing right ahead, and you cannot catch that moving train. So here's what we do. It happens all over America. We fire our superintendent. Grades didn't improve, you're out of here. We bring in another superintendent. 3 years later, most of it's not 3 years, most of it's a year and a half. They're out. We bring another superintendent. You know what I thought? We fired some of the best superintendents in the country in New York. And I thought like they died or something, right? I didn't realize they went from New York to Miami, from Miami to Pittsburgh. The same group of people, they go from one place to the other to the other. It's not because they're not smart. It's because we don't want to spend the money to lengthen the school day and to lengthen the school year so these kids have enough time to catch up who are behind. There's no other. Now look, that doesn't mean teachers should be off the hook. Lousy teachers ought to be fired. And there are plenty of lousy teachers, and the union rules get in the way, and that is wrong. And until adults stand up and say, I don't care, look, unions protect teachers. They don't educate children. And we've got to understand when the rules get in the way, the rules have got to be changed. But it's not just the schools and the teachers' fault. If the kids are behind, they need more time to catch up. And we've got to create an environment where these kids get more time to catch up. And that's which is going to cost more money, and the more money is going to be targeted. And I'm going to tell you this, as soon as you start targeting money for poor schools, guess what happens? All the other schools start yelling and screaming. You give them money, you got to give us money, right? So this is a political battle, but it's not going to happen otherwise. We're going to have to do it. Communities have to become a support medium for kids. You cannot expect children to grow up and be successful in communities we wouldn't be caught dead in. Not going to happen. Just not going to happen. And adults have abdicated their responsibilities for keeping communities safe and setting the standards within those communities. One of the things, I grew up in the South Bronx. It was considered an urban wasteland when I grew up in the South Bronx. And people talked about how disorganized and the social pathology of the South Bronx, but we knew who was in control of that community. It was adults. Adults, on my block on Union Avenue, there was this one woman. Her name was Ms. Lipscomb. I hope there are no Lipscombs in here. I'm going to get in trouble. Ms. Lipscomb didn't have a regular job. Her job was to look out her front window and tell our parents everything we did, right? That was her job. She was out there every day after school. Ms. Lipscomb was right there in the window watching the whole block. You couldn't do anything on our block without Ms. Lipscomb finding out. And we used to hate that woman, right? She was so nice. But you know what? It wasn't just Ms. Lipscomb. Ms. Francis, we know Ms. Francis sold numbers. All of us knew that. You think that made it so she didn't feel like she was like, you better not do that. I'm thinking, but you're a criminal, right? But it didn't matter. The adults were in control, and they meant that we young people had to live within those boundaries. And you know what they were? They were the early warning signals for our parents. They would come, they say, you know Geoffrey was over there with that? My mother would be like, no. What were you doing over there? I was like, I wasn't over there, Mom. Mrs. Lipscomb said to me, oh, I hate that woman, always ratting us out, right? We have seen a breakdown of community in poor communities. The drugs, the fear, the violence. Now people are afraid you say something to a kid. You know what? Kids do things today in front of us as adults that my generation could never have gotten away with in front of any adult at all. The language, you could not curse around adults when I was a kid. You just couldn't. You see someone's underwear, not when I was growing up, you could not. How is it that we have allowed this damn, you know what, it's not that we didn't curse. We had to hide to do that, right? We had to go in the alleys to do that kind of stuff. We wanted to smoke a cigarette, we had to go around a corner and hide because we knew the adults weren't. When you have a community where the adults do not make the boundaries known to kids, the kids figure out the boundaries for themselves and they are always wrong. And we have adults who are not prepared to stand up and say to the kids, no, we will not accept this behavior from you. And we know, look, it's not because the adults don't care. People are afraid of these kids. And you know what? People are afraid of the parents too. Right? Because some of y'all know what I'm talking about. You go see that parent and say, I saw your kid, they want to beat you up. Right? So you're like, I'm staying out of this. But you know what? You can't stay out of it. There's no alternative. You've got to get involved. Now let me say this last issue, which is that we have to use evaluation as a tool to improve student performance. There has to be accountability. If you're not improving the student performance for children, someone's got to get fired. Now I hate to say this, but everybody is not designed to work with these children. Somebody's got to make a decision that you've got to produce or you've got to leave. You can't have people who are simply allowing children to fail year after year after year, continue to get paychecks while the students don't do any better. But the evaluation, it shouldn't be just, oh, you failed. It should be useful saying, look, this isn't going so well, so what do we do to change so that we improve these outcomes? And every one of our programs has to have an evaluation component. And let me close on this last point, which is that we have to be prepared to think outside the box. This work is the most difficult work you can do. And if you continue to do what you've been doing, then you should continue to expect the results that you've been receiving. So we've got to think about this in a new way. And whenever I'm forced to do my whole life, the only reason I'm here is because I had one teacher who was prepared to think outside the box, right? When I was an undergraduate, I went to Bowdoin College, and I came from a poor high school. When I got to Bowdoin, they said, what's your major? I said, psychology. I said, how's your math? I said, I don't really do the math thing. I'm a like social science kind of guy, right? They said, well, you've got to pass statistics. And there are a lot of people in a different major because of statistics. Well, I didn't take statistics my freshman year, but sophomore year, I had to take it. So first semester, sophomore year, I took statistics, had our first test, studied all week, was up all night, took the test. I got a 37. I mean, I was crushed. I mean, wait, I got a real 37. This thing wasn't marked on a curve, right? I mean, I felt like my academic career was over. Where do you go from a 37, like a 48, right? So I was so humiliated that I was going to quit the class and change majors, but I decided to go see the professor. And I went to see him and said, look, I studied all week. I was up all night. I want to be a psych major. I want to help people. I don't know what to do. He said, Jeff, calm down. He says, I know what happened to you. I said, you do? What happened? He said, it was the slant. I said, what do you mean it was the slant? He said, you're a psych major, you'll get this. All of our textbooks have authors. The authors have their own biases that come up in their writing. This author has a particularly strong bias. It's working for all the other kids, it's not working for you. I want you to try an author with an opposite bias to see if it works for you. I said, He said, just try it. He said, read tonight's chapter in the old book, do the problem, see what happens. Read the chapter, did the problem. I didn't get it. He said, I want you to read that same chapter in this new book, do the problem, see what happens. I read the chapter, did the problems. I said, look, I understood. He said, well, we've got finals coming, 3 chapters left. Read the chapters, do the problems in the old book, see if you get it. read the chapters, did the problems, I didn't get it. Read those same chapters in the new book, do the problems, see if you get it. Read the chapters, I got it, took the exam, got an A on the exam, passed the class. Well, the second semester I was sitting in a perception class when it suddenly hit me. I said, you know what? That didn't have anything to do with a slant. This guy got me to read 2 books, right? And I was so upset, right? I was like, here he was with that whole slant baloney all the while. He was taking advantage of my little sophomoric mind, right? But you know what? I learned something. If he had simply told me, Jeff, you have to work harder, I didn't think I could work any harder. My ego was so crushed by that test. I was ready to throw it in. He had to figure out a way to get me to work twice as hard, but yet keep my belief in myself as a learner so I wouldn't throw in the towel. Every day we are faced with young people that other people have given up on. That they've said, you got to throw in the towel. I tried everything. It doesn't work. And instead of seeing that as a challenge to turn our back, we have to see that as a chance and an opportunity to advance this science, that we can think creatively out of the box and make a difference. Now let me close. I know I've gone on too long. I'm going to close with a poem. This is really ending. This poem is called Take a Stand, and I'd like to close with this poem called Take a Stand because I believe if you're really going to make a difference for Cleveland children, that you're going to have to be prepared to fight. And that means that we're going to have to stand up for children in a way we simply have not done before. So let me close with this poem, Take a Stand. Maybe before we didn't know that Corey is afraid to go to school, the store, to roller skate. He cries a lot for a boy of 8. But now we know each day it's true that other girls and boys cry too. They cry for us to lend a hand. Time for us to take a stand. And little Maria's window screens keeps out flies and other things. But she knows to duck her head when she prays each night for bed. Because in the window come some things that shatter little children's dreams. For some, the hourglass is out of sand. Time for us to take a stand. And Charlie's deepest secret wishes is someone to smother him with kisses and squeeze and hug him tight, so tight, while he pretends to put up a fight. Or at least someone to be at home who misses him. He's so alone. Who allowed this child-forsaken land? Look in the mirror, take a stand. And on the Sabbath when we pray to our God, we often say, "Oh Jesus, Muhammad, Abraham, I come to better understand how to learn to love and give and lead the life you taught to live. In faith, we must join hand in hand. Suffer the children, take a stand." And tonight, some child will go to bed. No food, no place to lay their head. No hand to hold, no lap to sit, to give slobbery kisses from slobbery lips. So you and I, we must succeed in this crusade, this holy deed, to say to the children of this land, have hope, we're here, we take a stand. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.